Hello, students of course and curriculum. This is video for week 2. First, a few points of reflection about what I have read um, in your assignments till now, and some of your comments when you introduced yourself. So first, some of you were talking about applying what we are studying here for your professional work and teaching specifically. So, just to reiterate, um, in order to take curriculum theory and use it for professional work, there is work to be done. Most of it you will need to do by yourself because we are dealing with this theory. Of course, there is connection to the practice, and here and there we will make those connections. Um, so that some of you started to comment in response to others, and this is great. This week, week number 1, you will not ask to do that. From now on, you will have to do it. I encourage you to pay attention to citation and APA format. I'm trying to comment on each post. If I missed you, I'm sorry. Sometimes I ask you a question. You don't have to respond, but I encourage you to do that. That will help for your understanding and development. I did comment for some of you on the writing itself, for example, about formatting. Okay, regarding this week reading, you have 3 readings from uh, part 1, of course, of the book, and this is the book, right? The 5th edition. So we're reading text by Bobbitt, Montessori, and Dewey. I do recommend to also read the intro to each of the sections. So for the first section, pages 1 to 8 or 1 to 5 if you want to stop at Dewey or after Dewey. It's very helpful. It gives you context for the authors and analysis of the pieces as well as extra information about the authors that might also help you to understand the text. Be aware that those are old pieces, right? Bovit, what we're reading was written, published in 1918. Montessori even earlier, published in Italian, 1909, and first translated into English in 1912. And you even going back to the earlier century, 1897. So it's interesting to see their observations and expectations and predictions. Some of them are wrong. You have the great advantage that you are now, right? Comparing to these thinkers, and they wrote before the internet, before computers, and in this sense, those texts and others that we read are historical. Of course, we read them as part of understanding the development of streams of curriculum theory. So there are some some interesting, even some funny notions. For example, in one of the texts, there is a notion of post-warrior, and of course, the meaning is to the World War I, not two, and also the text use not genderized language, like saying man and he. So this is interesting. All those 3 thinkers, Bobbitt, Montessori, and Dewey, in some sense, perhaps mostly Bobbitt and Montessori, they talk about the relationship between between science and education, and through the use of science, they represent some features of modernism. Going specifically, particularly into the readings, some general comments. So and some interesting quotes. So Bobbitt, unlike Egan, he draws the distinction between the what and the how. I remind you that Egan considered both as curriculum. Bobbitt talk about what can be discovered, right? And mention that this is different than discourse in some educational arenas that we don't know the professions of the future. Bobby makes some connections between education and the adult life, and he's talking about he has this quote: "Error is the symptom of training need." Pay attention to the use of training here, and that what leads training or education is errors. Montessori, of course, some of you might know the name from early childhood education, elementary, and she's talking about some notions of work and school life, and she has different approach to the relationship between science and education. Do we remember this name from last week? So of course this is a big name, a big philosopher of education. He has famous books like Democracy in Education and Experience in Education. We're not reading from these books. So he takes a specific, in these books and others, he takes a specific paradigm of life, a biological, social paradigm, and he uses from this paradigm to education. And that's how some notions of he's talking about stimulated and controlled, and talking about the environment, and he has this notion of very interesting notion of social organism. So in his piece there are from 5 articles: education, school, subject matter, nature of method, and then school and social progress. And from each we can deduce some implications for curriculum. So some comments about him. He's talking about the child nature in some respect that similar to Montessori. Unlike Bobbitt, he's saying that it is impossible to prepare the child for any precise set of conditions. So there is this element of open-ended education. He has this notion of the social individual. In some sense, he's talking about education as an equivalence to life. He's saying a process of living and not a preparation for future living. Pay attention how much it is different from Bobbitt, but school is school, so it's kind of a simplified version of the existing social life. Both Montessori and Dewey have a reservation about information and facts, and both have some notion of work. He's talking about stimulated and control in his work of the student. Dewey says that education cannot be unified in the study of science or so-called nature study, because apart from human activity in nature itself is not a unity, and see how this different from both Bobbitt and Montessori. He also says that education must be conceived as a continuing reconstruction of experience, that the process and the goal of education are one and the same thing. And this is a notion of growth that is very strong in um, um, in his book in Democracy and Education. You're also saying that the question of method is ultimately reducible to the question of the order of development of the child's powers and interests. So this is the how, not the what of the education or the curriculum or the how. So that connects with what we saw last week, that Egan says that the curriculum is both what and the how. Final two comments about Yuri. He founded uh, the laboratory school at the University of Chicago in 1896, where he kind of tested his progressive view. And it's important to stress that although he kind of starts from the child and the child experience, he does not underappreciate the subject matter, right? Um, so there is some delicate matter here. In terms of your assignment, um, this week the discussion is in groups, not the whole class. I created groups for you. You will see in the D2L. If you don't see your name in one of the groups, just email me. This week, two themes. The first one, use of science for curriculum design, and the other theme is curricular implications of Dewey pedagogic creed. For each of these themes, you have a question, and I won't go into details here. It's mostly thinking about implications of the text for curriculum. Few final notes. So from now on, as I said, you need to comment on two of other posts of others, and please post first to those that don't have two comments. So students will have a nice spread of comments and responses from others. Remember, as we suggested, you learn a lot from each other, not just from me. Please copy edit your text, both if you are English speaker and if not, especially if you feel that your writing is not strong in terms of sentence structure, wording, and grammar. So one trick that you could do is to find someone to read your post before you post them. So even though it is not a paper, if you think that your writing can benefit from someone else reading, and for most people this is the case, so please do. And final note, please read your peers. Even if you post if you are one of the first that post, don't just put everything aside. Just go back to the D2L, to the website, and see how the discussion has developed. Okay, so I wish you a happy weekend if you watch this during the weekend, and a happy week, and enjoy your work and studies. Bye bye.